Sahana vavatu, sahano bhunaktu, sahavidyan karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Chaitanyam sarvagam sarvam sarvabhutaguhashayam yat sarva vishayatitam tasmai sarvavide namaha. Excuse me. Good. Welcome back. Welcome also to our many students attending online. We continue our study of this chapter 17 we've recently begun. And here Shankara is using it's called swapna drishtanta. Swapna, dream. Drishtanta means metaphor. This is a metaphor that's frequently used, not just in Advaita Vedanta, but other traditions as well. And it's used in different ways, even in Advaita Vedanta. What we're seeing now, as I said in a prior class, was a less common but very important application of this metaphor to show how our experiences during a dream can help us better understand our experiences right now in the waking state. Of course, that's the whole point. This is not, as you know, this is not some kind of philosophical inquiry. As we said many, many times, Vedanta is not a philosophy. It's a process of spiritual inquiry, self-inquiry. So this drishtanta, then, dream drishtanta, can help us understand our experience in the waking state in a very important way. Let me just introduce it like this. In the last class, Shankaracharya observed that in a dream, we project a world. There's something interesting about the world that we project. You project, suppose you, in a dream, you're dreaming of an elephant that's chasing you. By the way, that's an example that's given in many sub-commentaries and commentaries, being chased by an elephant in the dream. Who created that elephant? You did. What is the source of fear? You. You created your own source of fear. Now suppose in a dream, you're dreaming about eating, say, a really nice ripe mango. You created the mango. But what's fascinating here, where does that contentment come when you enjoy? I'll just wait for everything to get settled down here. For our online viewers, we're a little, where is this one? There we go. So we're a little over full today, so they're putting out some more chairs. Good. Thank you. Here's what's interesting about that metaphor. When you dream about enjoying that ripe mango, where does that enjoyment come from? It doesn't come from a mango. There is no mango. So obviously that enjoyment comes from you. Now consider this. Suppose you go home today and eat a ripe mango. Where does that enjoyment come from? No doubt it seems to come from the mango. But tell me, doesn't the experience of eating a mango take place in your mind? And we've discussed before that happiness is not, or contentment is not an ingredient in any food, including a ripe mango. So just a little bit of logic shows that happiness doesn't come from the object. Everyone says happiness comes from within, but here we're seeing it in a little bit more concrete, specific way. When you enjoy that mango in a dream, the happiness you experience comes from you. When you enjoy a mango in the waking state, that experience takes place in your mind just like the dream experience of eating the mango, showing very clearly how that happiness that you enjoy eating the mango comes from you, not the mango. So this is what's being brought out here. Two factors. One is the source of happiness being you within and not external. Second thing we had discussed is, actually that topic is mostly over. The prior topic was resolving the difference between knower and known. I think that's been discussed in the prior verses. I don't think we'll see it much in today's class. So with this brief introduction, let's continue. Where we left off, Shankara had quite elaborately explained the dream, the drishtanta. Now we see the darshtanta. In Sanskrit, darshtanta means that which is represented by a metaphor. By the way, we don't seem to have a good word for that in English, do we? We need a word. Of course, in the meanwhile, we just use darshtanta, that which a metaphor represents. So let us pick up the thread and continue. Good. Jagratash-chatata bhedo, Jagratash-chatata bhedo, Jnanasyasya vikalpitaha, Jnanasyasya vikalpitaha, Buddhistam vyakarotyartam, Buddhistam vyakarotyartam, Bhranta Trishnodbhava kriyaha, Bhrantya Krishnodbhavat kriyaha. Jagrataha cha tata. Similarly, Jagrataha, for the waking state, Bhedaha, difference. Actually, I have to retract what I just said. That what we saw quite extensively last week was how in a dream, knower and known are really not distinct. If that elephant is known to you, it's not separate from you, the knower of the elephant in the dream. That mango is known to you in the dream, but the mango is not different from you, the knower. So that distinction between knower and known, which is so fundamental in the waking state, is absent, completely absent in the dream state. What Sri Shankara is showing here is that it applies completely in the waking state, and let's see how. So he says that bhedaha, this differentiation into knower and known. In the dream, you are the dreamer, and in the elephant in the dream is projected by you. It's within you. It's not separate from you. And he says the same is true for Jagrataha in the waking state, that this jnanasya asya, the knowledge of any object known to you, is vikalpitaha, projected. The differentiation of this little complicated language, what it means very simply is the differentiation we experience in the waking state, the differentiation of knower and known. You are the knower, and me sitting on this chair, I am the one who is known. That differentiation, according to Sri Shankara, is kalpita, projected. Now, this seems counterintuitive. I mean, you're there and I'm here. How is this difference projected? Remember that we are analyzing experience here. We are not analyzing the world. This is a huge error that people easily make. Our analysis here is not about the world. You're sitting there, fine, I'm sitting here, no problem. That's what it is at the worldly perspective. You and I, your physical body and my physical body are absolutely separate. at a worldly level. But that's not our discussion here. We're discussing the experience of dream state and now the experience of waking state. So in the waking state, where am I sitting? You know, funny to put it this way, I'm sitting inside your head, which is the fact of the matter. You know how the brain and mind works. Your eyes pick up this image of me and recreates an image of me in your head. I am in your head. Like they say that, pardon a small political joke, Kamala Harris is now inside Trump's head. And then they go on to say she's living there rent-free. That's a nice kind of expression. So I am living in your head right now, rent-free, so to speak. But that's, and coming back to our discussion, we are discussing experience, and that's the experience about me sitting in your head, non-separate from you, the knower. There it is. Please be careful. Many people misinterpret verses like this to support a philosophical doctrine called idealism. The world, the physical world, is a creation of your mind. That's ancient and still adhered to by some modern people. It is a philosophical teaching that the physical world we experience is a creation of your mind. This is called idealism. There are many we've discussed it before, the Buddhist idealists. But there are many idealists in ancient Greece and in modern times, throughout history. I think there's one British philosopher, Berkeley, I think around the turn of the 19th century, who was famous for teaching this idealism. Vedanta rejects idealism. Don't mistake Vedanta's teachings as being idealistic. The world, there is a physical world out there. It's not absolutely real, mithya, we've discussed that elsewhere, but it is not a creation of your mind, which is what idealism teaches. Okay, so setting aside idealism, we're discussing your experience in the waking state. The distinction between knower and known is projected by you. The distinction between you, the knower, and me, sitting in your head, that distinction is projected by you. Then Shankara continues that buddhistam, and the last word in the third line, artam, objects in your mind. Artam, objects, buddhistam, in your mind. And it applies to all objects, but it'll be helpful if we focus on desirable objects. So we'll go back to our mango. Usually I use ice cream, but now we're using mango today. Anyway, buddhistam artam, a desirable object that you enjoy, now waking state. You go home and that mango. The mango you eat when you go home. That object, Sri Krishna, this is not Uddhava Gita, which we studied yesterday. Shankaracharya says, Vyakaroti, that mango is Vyakaroti, created, projected in the waking state, Brantya, due to ignorance, due to illusion of your mind, due to being projected by your mind. Again, the mango in your mind, the mango in your experience is obviously a product of your mind. You know how, in fact, everything you know about that mango is created by your mind. You see it. Your eyeballs pick up its image, convey it to your mind. You taste it. Sensors on your tongue pick up part of the flavor of your mind and bring it to your mind. By the way, you may know most flavor comes not from your tongue. I think your tongue only has like 5 different kinds of sensors. The complexity of flavors we experience comes from our noses, our sense of smell. Our tongues can only differentiate like salt and sugar and a few, I think 4 or 5, how many? 6? 6 different senses? Okay. 6, your tongue only has 6 different sensors. You can only get 6 different flavors with your tongue, but we taste so many. Which is why when you have a bad cold, you get it, So anyway, I'm just making. And then when you hold that mango, you feel it, you feel the weight. Where does that come from? It's all happening in your mind. The world we experience in the most direct manner is the world in our mind. Yes, we experience a world out there, absolutely, but it's experienced indirectly because the experience is mediated. There is the outside world and there's you, and who's mediating this whole process? Your 5 senses. So it's a mediated experience, but an immediate experience takes place with the mind that's loaded, as it were, into your mind, just like you load software. Here, this image of the world has been loaded in our mind. So those objects, those desirable objects, like the mango, vyakaroti, are created in your mind. Brantya means you take. Due to Bhranti means actually Bhranti means an error. We'll be very specific here. And the error is thinking that the mango in your head is identical to the mango in your hand. Or the Swami sitting on the chair is identical to the Swami who's sitting in your head. They're not identical. These are 2 different. They have to be understood individually. So this is Bhranti, this is the error we make. And what's significant here, and leading into the following discussion, he says that all of this happens, why? Trishna udbhava kriyaha. Because the person who's doing this projection, is Trishna udbhava. Kriya here means the action of projection, I suppose. I guess that's probably the best meaning we'll get. The actions of the person who is doing this projection, those actions are Trishna udbhava, born of desire. You want that mango. You see that mango sitting there? You grab that mango, you open it up, you eat it, and you enjoy it. All of that happens in your mind, right? The mango is in your mind. The enjoyment is in your mind. And where does that mental enjoyment come from? Sat-chit-ananda, atma. Atma is the mind. This is a technical topic. We're not going to get into it. But the mind reflects consciousness. We've used this metaphor many times. The mind also reflects ananda. This is not our topic. It's a big topic. It's technical. I don't want to go there right now. But just as your mind makes consciousness manifest, your mind makes ananda manifest when you enjoy that mango. I think we'll come to someplace. We'll come to that. Chapter 18 is huge. I'm pretty sure we'll see that topic discussed there. Okay, let us proceed. Swapne yadvat prabodhe cha, swapne yadvat prabodhe cha, bahishchantas tataiva cha, bahishchantas tataiva cha, alekyadhyayane yadvata, alekyadhyayane yadvata, Taranyonyadhiyodbhavam. Taranyonyadhiyodbhavam. Swapne prabodhe cha yadvat. Yadvat, just like swapne, in a dream, prabodhe cha, just like in the waking state. So here we're seeing the similarities between the waking and dream state. Gaudapada, Shankara's Paramaguru, was famous in his Karika for deliberately blurring the distinction between the waking and dream states. And you can see Shankara's teachings reflecting that. They're more similar than you think. You wake up from a dream and you get it that your dream isn't absolutely real. And you wake up out of the dream of ignorance. You understand that this world is not absolutely real. Okay, we've discussed this before. So, in a dream, and similarly in the waking state, bahihi cha antaha tataiva cha. So bahihi, the idea of something being outside of you, and antaha, the idea of something being inside you. Skip a line. Tad anyonya dhiya udbhavam, breaking up the words. That distinction between outside and inside, bahihi and antar, that distinction of being outside and inside, he says that is dhiya udbhavam. It is born of your mind, the distinction between inside and outside. The mango is, trick question, is the mango in the dreams, actually this is not a trick question, in the dream state the mango is inside or not? In your dream, how do you experience the mango? You don't eat a mango that's in your head. So you dream of a mango sitting out there. The dream mango is outside, and then you eat it. In the waking state, same thing. There is a mango. The difference is there really is a mango there, but the mango you grab, in fact, the hand with which you grab, in terms of your experience, it's all inside your head. The mango is in your head, the hand is in your head, grabbing the mango, it's all an experience. All experience takes place in your mind. Therefore, the distinction between outside, the mango seems like it's outside, and the mango is certainly inside, this distinction is dhiya. Yeah, dhiya means mind, intellect. Dhiya udbhavam, it is born of your mind, and tad anyonya dhiya. There is an aspect of anyonya means mutual. So there's an aspect of mutual dependence here. And Shankara is actually referring to a fairly complex logical teaching. We won't get into the details of it, but there is an issue of mutual dependence. Let me give his example, and then we'll see it. The example of mutual dependence he gives is yad in the third line. Yadvat, just like alekhya and adhyayana. Alekhya is what is written, and adhyayana is what is read. So writing and reading. Writing and reading is a simple example of things which are mutually dependent. Could there be reading if there were no writing? Could there be writing if there were no reading? You get the point. So they are logically mutually, we know they're different activities. Absolutely, they're different activities, but the fact that there is such a thing as writing and the fact that there is such a thing as reading, these facts are mutually dependent. You can't have just one or the other. You can't have writing without reading or reading without writing. That's an example of mutual dependence. And what Shankara wants to do here is apply this principle to inside and outside. Your mind creates this distinction of inside and outside. If you didn't see anything outside, if you didn't see the mango outside, you wouldn't have the sense of inside and outside. Or if you didn't recognize that you're thinking about a mango, then there'd be no distinction either anyway. He's making a little bit of, well, how do we say it, pedantic point, is that the mango on the table and the mango in your mind are mutually dependent. You can't have one without the other. Or to make it more obvious, the Swami Taratmananda sitting in this chair and Swami Taratmananda sitting in your head are mutually dependent. You can't have one without the other. They come mutually dependent. Okay, little bit of a pedantic point. All right, but the important point, the mutual dependence, I said, is a pedantic point. The more important point here is that this idea of inside and outside is created by you. In terms of experience, it's only inside, right? In a dream, it's only inside, and in a waking state, according to your experience, based on your experience, it's only inside. That's the point. That's not pedantic. That's extremely important. Okay, next. Yadayam kalpayet bhedam, yadayam, yadayam kalpayet bhedam, yadayam kalpayet bhedam, tat kama sanyatha kratuhu, tat kama syat, yat kamas tat kratur bhutva, yat kamas tat kratur bhutva kritam yat tat prapadyate. Yada, when I am, this person, when a person, kalpayet, happens to project bhedam, distinction. So the distinction between Swami Taratmananda sitting out here and me sitting in your head, or let's stay with the mango. The mango sitting on the table and the mango which is present in your mind. There is a bheda, there is a distinction. And with regard, let's stay with the mango, with regard to that mango, tat kamaha sanna. You want it. You're hungry, and the last mango you had was excellent, and this mango looks even better, and you're ready. You're ready to enjoy that mango, and therefore, yata kratuhu. Kratu has different meanings. Here it means sankalpa. You decide, I'm going to enjoy that mango. You decide to eat that mango. Then, yat kamaha tat kratuhu bhutva. It's a reference again to a little bit of a technical teaching, and that is that desire precedes a decision. You have a desire, I want the mango, and then follows kratu, the sankalpa, the decision to get the mango. And this is the something we've discussed many times, the fundamental principle of life. You see something desirable, you go and get it. You see something undesirable, you run away from it. This is the normal human behavior that's being described here. Why is he bothering to describe normal human behavior? Well, look at the context. We're describing a mango that is inside. You decide to get the mango because you think that mango is a source of pleasure. But the mango on the table is not the source of pleasure. It's a mango in your head that's a source of pleasure. Pleasure doesn't come from objects. What comes from that mango is taste. And taste, by the way, taste is neutral, right? When your tongue and nose picks up different things, your tongue picks up, I guess, different chemicals. Your nose also picks up different chemicals. Are chemicals good or bad? That's kind of silly, right? Well, then why is it that we like some smells and we hate some smells? We like some flavors and we dislike some flavors. Point is, that's not coming from the chemicals, right? Because smell and taste are just chemicals. Where does good and bad come from? You get it. This is Shankara's point. It's all projected. Isn't that odd? If your sensors in your tongue and nose work differently, you would think that mangoes are the most disgusting thing in the world. Ick! How could anyone eat a mango? It's possible, because they're just chemicals. If your sensors were configured differently, you would respond differently to the same chemicals. So, Shankara then concludes, yat kritam tat prapadyate. Yat kritam. Having desired something, having decided to get it, and yat kritam, having gotten it. Having eaten the ango. What is that? That's not even a word. I don't know what's going on here. So having ango without the M. There it is. What is ango? I didn't even know. So having eaten that mango, 3 steps. I want it, I'm going to get it, and I eat it. So yat kritam, having eaten that mango, tat prapadyate, you enjoy it. Now, you experience the results of your actions. And here's the point, and here we have to kind of understand how Shankara is looking at this. By eating the mango, you enjoy pleasure that comes from you and not from the mango, right? If you think, I've used this in a different context. If you think that pleasure is a property of mangoes, many people think that pleasure belongs to the mango. If pleasure belongs to the mango, eating 1 mango should make you happy. Eating 12 mangoes should make you 12 times happier. Does it work that way? How about 100 mangoes? Right? You get the point. So it's a very simple demonstration that pleasure doesn't come from the mango. It comes from inside. So look at this. You see the mango which you think is outside. You decide to get the mango which is outside, which is not a big deal, but we'll come to something else in a moment. And you go for that mango. All of that effort, not much effort, but all of that is done for what you already have. Let's use a different metaphor. A metaphor. You're driving by and you see a house with a for sale sign. You make an appointment with the realtor. So, tat kamaha. You see the house. And you make an appointment with the realtor. You see the house. You want the house. Tat kratuhu. You make a contract to buy the house. And finally, yat kritam. You move in to the house. These are the three stages. All of that, by the way, many of you have gone through this. You know how complicated it is to buy a house. You know how costly it is to pay those mortgage, negotiating with the bank and all these mortgage payments that go on for years and years and years. Buying a house is a big deal. All of that to enjoy pleasure of a house. Where is the source of the pleasure? Wouldn't it be easier? Take the shortcut. Why bother with a house and a contract and a mortgage? Just close your eyes and enjoy a house in your mind. I'm not being completely facetious. Partially, yes. Not completely. Look at the effort and cost involved in buying the house for the sake of pleasure. That's your true nature. What a useless waste. You need a house for your family, I get that. But you get my point also, that when we are driven by pleasure, look at the difference here. Buying a house for your family, wonderful. Buying a house purely for pleasure, that's what we're talking about, right? It's a difference between going after dharma and going after kama. Kama, artha, dharma, moksha. If you're driven by dharma, there's no problem. If you're driven by kama, desire, that's where we get into trouble. Okay, so it ends up being, if you're driven by dharma, you are fulfilling your responsibilities. It's a win-win situation. If you're driven by kama, you, in all of this effort, all of this cost, useless, lose the situation. Okay, we'll see one more verse today. Avidya prabhavam sarvam, avidya prabhavam sarvam, asat. And there's a ta missing. Asat-tasmaridam. What is that, tasmaridam? Yeah, there's a tat missing before smat. Asat-tasmaridam jagata. Asat-tasmaridam jagata. Tadvata srishyate yasmat. Tadyata srishyate yasmat. Sushupte nacha grihyate. Sushupte nacha grihyate. Avidya prabhavam sarvam. Sarvam, all of this that we've been discussing, this division between outside and inside, this incorrect projection of pleasure, the source of pleasure, gets superimposed on the mango. The pleasure gets superimposed on the house. Pleasure, this sense of pleasure being superimposed on objects in the world is an important teaching. That it's not the main teaching here, but often it becomes a central topic. It gets a special name. I'd like you to know it. It is Shobhana Adhyasa. Shobhana, that which is beautiful, but here, that which is desirable. Adhyasa, superimposition. Shobhana adhyasa is when you project the source of pleasure onto the mango that's outside, because the source of pleasure is inside. Shobhana adhyasa is when you project the source of pleasure on that house, when the source of pleasure is inside. So this is Shobhana adhyasa. So all of this, sarvam, all of this is avidya prabhavam. It's all prabhavam, born of avidya, ignorance. Which is why, just to make a very, very fundamental point in Advaita Vedanta, you suffer because of ignorance. Ignorance is the root cause of suffering. If you wonder why so much, why does Shankara go on for hundreds and hundreds of verses? He's addressing that central problem, the source of suffering, ignorance. So sarvam, all of that is avidya prabhavam. And tasmat, for the reasons given in this comparison between the world and a dream, based on that analogy, idam jagat, this world is asat. Now, asat means unreal, but as I made this distinction very strongly at the end of yesterday's class, the world is unreal, not like the elephant I'm holding in my hand. The elephant I'm holding in my hand is absolutely unreal. This world is partially unreal. Partially unreal because our definition of real is that which doesn't come and go. Everything in the world is transient. Everything comes and goes. Therefore, it's not absolutely real. But the elephant in my hand didn't even come, much less go. So the elephant, we say, atyanta abhava, is absolutely unreal, absolutely non-existence. The world is not like that. There is a world out there, but it's not absolutely real. Okay? Asat idam jagat, the world is not absolutely real. What about the world in your mind? That's a little more complicated, right? So the world in your mind has two components. One is, and we've been through this before, one component, what is in your mind? The most fundamental analysis of what's happening in your mind has to be a twofold analysis, and that is there's stuff and there's consciousness. That's it. I mean, I'm kind of dumbing it down, so to speak, but you can't have a mind without stuff. That would be, you wouldn't experience, if there were only consciousness, pure, formless consciousness, you wouldn't experience a thing. So you experience a world. The world is stuff, and here in this case, it's not physical stuff, it's mental stuff in your mind. We call it vritti. Vrittis are in your mind, so mental stuff, and if you had mental stuff, but no one knows the presence of mental stuff, there's also no experience. So these are the minimum two factors, consciousness and mental stuff. Vrittis are present in your mind. I asked you if the world in your mind is real. And the answer is yes and no. The mental stuff is not absolutely real. The consciousness is. The mental stuff comes and goes. Consciousness doesn't go. And Shankara is going to make that point shortly here. So why is the world in your mind is part of it is real, part of it is not real. The forms, nama rupa, of the world in your mind is not real, comes and goes. But the consciousness by which the world in your mind is known is absolutely real. And yadvata srishyate yasmat, this actually connects to the prior line, yasmat tasmat. So why can we make that statement that the world is unreal? He says yadvata, because of this, because of what? Yasmat, because srishyate, it's created. The world in your mind, the world, okay, I'm trying to crawl into Shankara's mind right now and just see how he's using this language. Srishyate means to create. And what's being created? Obviously the world in your mind is being created, but that's not exactly what he's referring to. What is created by your mind is the reality of the external world. Watch these words very carefully. The external world is not a reality. Comes and goes. You attribute to that external world reality. And you think it is a reality that you directly interact with. This is a common, people think it is what it is. You interact with the world. Vedanta leads you to understand that the world is not absolutely real. The world that you directly experience is a world in your mind. All of this confusion Srishyate is created by you, by our ignorance. So it is the word he used before, bhranti. It is an error in thinking to think that the world is the source of pleasure. Let's stay confined to that. That'll be more helpful here. It is a mistake to believe, to incorrectly conclude that the world is a source of pleasure and the pleasure you experience truly comes from outside. That is a mistake. There's also a second, that's not what he means here. So anyway, I'll leave the second part apart. So but the point what I said before, the unreality of the world out there, he bases that on the last line, sushupte, in deep sleep, dreamless sleep, nacha grahyate, it is not experienced. The outside world is not experienced in deep sleep. Remember our definition of real. And the language we use all the time. Trikala abadhitam. Abadhitam means non-negatable. Non-negatable, trikale, in three states of experience, past, present, and future. That means it exists now. It has always existed in the past, which means it was never created, and it will always exist in the future, which means it's timeless, eternal, endless. This is our definition of real. Can we say that about the world? If the world were absolutely real, you couldn't make it leave your experience ever, even in deep sleep. Now you say, but wait a minute, what about, you might argue that the mind is a vehicle for knowing the world. In deep sleep, your mind, being a little technical here, we'll finish this up. Your mind is a vehicle for knowing the world. In deep sleep, your mind is resolved, therefore the world could be real, but you don't know the real world because you're asleep. Problem with that explanation is that you continue to be conscious in deep sleep, and your consciousness pervades the universe. So the argument goes that regardless of the condition of your mind, the entire universe should be present in your consciousness. Do you know what? I'm not happy with this explanation. I'm not happy with it because I mentioned before, trying to get inside of Shankara's mind, you have to interpret these words the way Shankara intended them. And I think I've just made an error in interpreting how Shankara is intending the usage of these words. I apologize, it happens. So here, the question is, which world is born of ignorance? The inside world or the outside world? And this is a huge topic where we can't go there because both of them are born of ignorance. Which is he talking about? Which world goes away in deep sleep? And that's not hard to figure out. The world out here, this is actually much more complicated than I didn't think of all the implications. Anyway, let me just hint at the implications here. Obviously, you go to sleep and it's your inside world that goes away and not the outside world. If the outside world went away when you fell asleep, what would happen to me being awake? You go to sleep, and my world goes, and this world, the real world out there, goes away, which means me as a waking person, I no longer exist. Because I am part of this world. If this outside world goes away when you go to sleep, then I go away when you go to sleep. There is that is extraordinarily counterintuitive to imagine tonight when I go to sleep, all of you cease to exist. Extremely counterintuitive. But there's a school of Vedanta which teaches exactly this. And it's based on something we've already talked about. And that is, if you shift to the perspective of experience, from the standpoint of my experience, in fact, you all cease to exist when I fall asleep at night. And almost like by magic, when I wake up, you resume your existence. There is actually a school of thought, not a mainstream school of thought, a side school, what we say, a marginal school of thought in Advaita Vedanta called Drishti-Srishti-Vada. And there are just a handful of texts that promote this particular point of view. These texts are not widely studied. I studied one a little bit and broke my head because it's all logic, just from beginning to end. It's all logic. Even though the topic is experience, to make this point, they have to use a lot of logic to rule out all the other options. Anyway, it's just head-breaking logic. But just so that you should know, I said before that Vedanta is not idealism, with one exception. This marginal school of thought could be considered an idealistic teaching. It is rejected in mainstream Vedanta, so I think for the sake of our clarity, we should set it aside. It's called Drishti-Srishti-Vada. The world is indeed a creation of your thought. Then you might, one final question here before we end our class, and that is, why does this marginal school of thought even exist? Well, why does Vedanta exist? Vedanta is meant to solve the problem of suffering, and mainstream Vedanta is made to remove the suffering of mainstream people like you and me. But suppose there is somebody, the term called, somebody who is called an atma-vichara, a genius, a spiritual genius. For such a person, a spiritual genius, this school of thought is very attractive, this marginal school of thought. So it exists for a reason. It teaches at a level suitable for spiritual geniuses. If any of you happen to fall in that category, you need not come for next week's class. Just go and find these other texts and figure it out for yourself. But if you're not a spiritual genius, we can give ourselves permission to set aside this school of Vedantic idealism, known as Drishti-Srishti-Vada, and we can stay in the mainstream of Vedanta, which says that there is an external world which is not a projection of your mind, but it's not absolutely real either. This is mainstream Vedanta, and this will be a good place to conclude today. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.